Just hit that, and we're preparing to live stream. If everyone could just hold on comments at this point once we start the live stream. Once Chair Best arrives, we'll start the meeting. I just got my feedback loop, so we should be pretty good.
Yep. On my end, it's saying that we're not going live until 7 o'clock on the dot, but it has a countdown. We're less than 2 minutes.
Hello, hello. What's going on here?
Good evening, Conrad.
Yeah, I'm looking at something different on the screen than I expected to see.
That's okay.
Okay.
All righty, we're live.
Okay, Bethany, I have 7 p.m. Are we live streaming and everything looks good?
We are ready to go.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Planning Commission and City of Frostburg. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting, Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. Happy New Year, everyone. And with that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Chair Conrad Best. Chair Best, if you'd like to call the meeting to order, we're ready to go. Thank you very much.
It is now 7 p.m. I hereby call the January 13th meeting of the Frostburg Planning Commission to order. We'll start our meeting with a roll call of members present.
Ray Race.
Director Bennett, will you call the roll, please?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. Commissioner Race.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Ritchie.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Snyder.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Krogh.
She's on mute.
Commissioner Krogh, can you unmute yourself and let us know you're present with us tonight? Commissioner Krogh, you're present with us this evening? Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. Chair Best.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And Commissioner Duncan.
I am present.
Thank you very much. Let the record show we not only have a quorum, but we have perfect attendance this evening.
Hey, we have a quorum. As we begin, I would ask that anyone present presenting business before the commission or individuals who want to comment on business before the commission indicate their concern and the appropriate time. State your name and address for the record Each meeting is recorded, so please speak loudly and clearly.
My name is John Allen Smith. I represent Smitty's Tire and Truck Service, 101 Frostburg Industrial Park, Frostburg.
Mr. Smith, we're not ready for you quite yet. We have one other item before you on the agenda. We'll get to you. We'll call on you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
First item on the agenda is the review and approval of the minutes of the November 18th meeting. If the commissioners would please take a look at the minutes, and I will entertain them for approval when someone so chooses.
Thank you, Chair Best. And I would just like to note that as I scroll through these minutes, if there's any place you would like me to stop so you can review further, I'll be happy to. Please just alert me to that.
LJ, I have a dumb procedural question. Has to do
Certainly.
with the minutes.
Mhm.
Whenever you reference like an HTTPS or a website or something like that where like videos are stored, how does that get entered into the record?
The actual website? I
Well,
mean,
not
we
so
can,
much the website. I mean, if we watch something, how does that get entered in? I'm just out of curiosity. I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
I think that's an excellent question, and that's something I'll have to do some research on. If you would like to have like presentations that we discuss added to the minutes, I can probably find a way to do that, or I
That's
can add
exactly what I
them.
was getting at. Yeah, like
I can
someone
add
puts
them to our website, so they're a part of the public record that way, and they could go
Yeah.
directly to the Planning Commission page on the website.
case in point is if someone did a PowerPoint or something like that. And I mean, normally we have paper copies of it.
Mhm.
You may not have that at your disposal. So
We can certainly add those to your page on the website. We did that recently for the Historic District Commission with the presentation that I did on signage in the Historic District that I also discussed with you in your November meeting. So I could very easily attach that to your website page as well.
I'll make a motion that the minutes are approved as entered.
I make a second. This is Commissioner Carter.
The moved and second that we approve the minutes of the November 18th, 2020 meeting. All in favor, please hit, I'm sorry. Director Bennett, will you please call the roll?
I'd be happy to. Motion on approval of the minutes. Commissioner Race,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritchie,
Aye.
Commissioner Snyder,
Aye.
Commissioner Krogh. Uh-oh, did we lose her?
I'm not seeing her on the list right now.
She may have dropped off. I'll extend the invite to her again and see if we can get her back on here. But at this point, I'll move on. Chair Best? On the
Yes.
on the approval of the minutes?
Yay.
And Commissioner Duncan?
Aye.
Thanks very much. Let the record show that's a total of 6 commissioners out of 7 in favor of the approval of the minutes.
Next item on our business is citizens' comments from the floor. Director Bennett, has any citizen come forward that wants to state anything at this meeting?
At this time, Chair, I have no submitted citizen comments from the floor.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the proposal from Smitty Tire. Mr. Smith, you have the floor.
I'd like to turn it over to my engineer, Aaron Teets.
Okay, this is Aaron Teets with Century Engineering. we had already gone over a bunch of this stuff in the November meeting. Based upon your guys' comments, we ended up getting in contact with State Highway, had a meeting down at Frostburg last week with them to talk about some of the entrance issues, the geometry that was a concern for some people. We revised the entrances based upon State Highway's feedback. Now, the entrance on the 36 side, they basically, one of the things that they said they use as an option is they do what's called an asymmetrical entrance, where you still have kind of a 90-degree approaching Village Parkway, and you have a regular lane going that way, but in order to transition truck traffic into the site better, you basically widen the entrance lane to allow for the tailing trailer tires. So we revised the entrance on the 36 side of the site. We kept the entrance on the other side of the site wider, not as wide as it had been, but basically in order to get tractor trailers out and make that U-turn, basically State Highway said that they do go over their standard commercial entrance width for truck traffic. So they were basically in favor of the wider entrances because of the truck traffic. We looked at the option and discussed the Kaler Circle four-way intersection issue, but the building at the corner of the lot that's across from Kaler Circle, I believe is a landfill vent. Basically, it's not something that we can just go in there and move. So that's why we're kind of restricted to it. They also indicated that because the Village Parkway is such a low volume road, that they didn't anticipate any issues with the basically not lined up exits. There wouldn't be any future signalization questions because each, on either side of the intersection, there's only one property. So it's not like you're going to have further development on Smitty's tire as if it was a mall, could increase traffic, and they might need to signalize it further, and therefore the offset entrances would be a problem. We did shift the fuel lane south to give us a little better geometry leaving the site, moved them a little bit so we could actually queue up another trailer. We removed the office and decided we were going to probably put the office down to where the office tire storage is now, the northern wing of the existing building. We also touched base. There's right at the southern edge of fuel lane 4, you'll see a little black circle that's around a utility pad that's basically a big transformer. It's got some other utilities there. Mr. Smith's already basically kind of gotten in the process of seeing what we could do about moving that would give us a little more flexibility to shift it further. As it is, we're going to have to do some bollards or something around that to keep them, keep trucks from causing any damage to that. So before we move on to the zoning question, does anybody have any questions about the entrances and basically revisions to the site plan itself?
Was there any concern with the intersection of Village Parkway and 36 by State Highway?
No, they seem to indicate that this would be a negligible amount of traffic increase. They said we really don't, like there would be no need for any sort of traffic study. They were very comfortable with the idea of this not causing any problems with that intersection due to the speed on 36 there, where it's going from 40 down to 25. Also, there's a pretty strong police presence there where they're watching people to make sure they're slowing down the speeds, and the sight distance in both directions, they felt very comfortable with it.
Laura, you were at that meeting. Was this your take on it too?
Yes, I agree with Aaron's summation. The discussion regarding the impact at the intersection at Route 36 was definitely that they felt no signalization was required. Line of sight was good in both directions. There was a sort of confirmation that yes, you'll get complaints, but they felt strongly that that volume would not require a traffic study or signal installation. The only concern that was stated was that the level of traffic that will manifest on Village Parkway once the industrial park is full, is that that's not exactly the level of traffic they would expect to see on a road built like that. Meaning in the future, some widening and reconstruction of Village Parkway may be necessary to accommodate a full industrial park.
At what point?
But, Laura, that just to clarify though, that really didn't have anything to do with the development of this parcel. That was more subsequent development of the other pad sites.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And the representatives from State Highway did express that while they very much appreciated us having a discussion about potential impacts to Route 36, that this particular site plan was out of their purview, and they were not going to provide any kind of formal communication in regard to it.
Any other questions regarding access and egress from the site? Hearing none, Aaron, continue on, please.
Okay, so now we basically have the question about the zoning and the change of use. As mentioned earlier in the previous meeting, you guys already noted that you felt that a fuel stop would be a secondary use to the tires business, which is basically a storage and distribution facility, which is one of the principal permitted uses. I almost want to have a kind of like a toss out there a question for everybody. If we're, normally when we're talking about regulations, you talk about the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. If this, we talk about the spirit of the law, if you look at the purpose of tech light industrial, it's to provide for a commercial use that is compatible with commercial uses in adjacent areas, which would be the C2 that literally is next door. So the spirit of the light industrial zoning is for it to be compatible with adjacent uses. If you go with the letter of the law, then we're talking about, well, how do we define each particular use and how do those uses fit within the principal permitted uses as outlined in light industrial? When we're talking about, like, it's one of those things where restaurant isn't really clearly defined. So are we talking about a sit-down dine-in restaurant? We already know that there's a drive-through question. It's a special exception in C2, but a carry-out restaurant, is that really the same as a restaurant that is a permitted use in C2? One of the permitted uses in light industrial is the packaging or the processing or packaging of food and food products. So I would almost feel that a sub shop, which is the processing and packaging of food and food products, would fall under that permitted use. Like, I don't even know if we don't even need a special exception if our principal use is actually, we fall within the bounds of our principal uses. So I don't even know if we really need a special exception. If we argue the letter of the law question about the semantics that a sub shop is processing or packaging of food and food products. So if anybody has any feedback on that, I would like to hear that, because it almost makes the whole special exception question a moot point.
Well, Aaron, I'm gonna disagree with you there, and I'm gonna put on my lawyer hat now that I am a lawyer. So
Okay.
When you start talking about spirit versus letter, that doesn't really mean much in the terms of the legal realm, I guess. But my only concern with that argument is when you read the totality of that paragraph, or that section, it's talking about manufacturing, compounding, processing, or packaging. Like I would rereading that to say that that is not some type of restaurant, but you're talking about a manufacturing type of facility where you would be, I don't know, like a Firefly Farms, you know, making cheese, or you're a, you know, something similar to that, as opposed to what you're talking about, making food to
Well, and that's why I was saying, like,
distribute to a customer. And and we have gotten into issues relating to the carryout piece of what you're talking about with another property, actually, just within the last few years. So I definitely feel like in that situation, we viewed the carryout to be in line with a restaurant. And again, let my other commissioners jump in with whether I'm off on that, but at least in that particular situation, because they were basically selling and serving food, even though it was in a carryout fashion, it was still viewed the same as you would as a restaurant, where I feel like that particular provision is talking more about a larger manufacturing type of situation. So I definitely think you need it, you're not a principal permitted use. That would be my assessment. So
Hey, if I
Okay.
can jump in and ask a question, Aaron or Mr. Smith, just clarify what it is we are looking here, just for everyone, just to clarify it again, as far as what you're looking at is for food service. Are we talking just carry out, or are we talking sit down? Explain again what you're thinking. Or I guess to clarify what you're
And
proposing.
also targeted audience.
Well, my understanding from talking to Mr. Smith is that he's had some discussions with different people, one of which was a sub shop that expressed interest in basically working out of one of the commercial areas, which would basically be a carry out, where they process the food, package it up, and go. And that's why I know we're playing a semantics game, but that's basically what regulatory interpretation is a semantics game. And can you make, your definite, what you're trying to apply fit within what the principal permitted use is. That was my only point about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. The letter of the law becomes a semantics argument.
I'd ask a question. Who is the targeted audience for this takeout? Is it for the truckers who are coming in? Else?
Well, that was primarily what the intention was, is that you're creating a facility that somebody can come in, they can get their tires done. While they wait for the tires, they could stop over, pick up a sub. Truckers that are coming in, if you've ever been around a truck fueling up, it takes a while for them to fuel up. If there's trucks in queue, they can come over, pick up food in the sub shop. Basically it's food that's kind of on the go. So it's not really that was what the intention, not having a sit down dine-in restaurant. That was why we were kind of thinking that it didn't necessarily qualify the same as a full restaurant, but that's obviously up to you, your guys' interpretation.
It is targeted for people other than the truckers also.
Well, trucks or a tire shop. If somebody comes into a tire shop, they're going to be sitting there for a while waiting for their vehicle to get serviced. And obviously, if there are other people that want to come in, if there are college kids that want to come in and pick up food, I'm pretty sure they're not going to require that you have to be a customer of the tire shop or the fuel stop in order to get a sub to go.
Well, based on the number of parking lots there in front of the sub area, it looks like they're prepared for a number of customers.
Well, basically, whatever we were talking about, there's a couple commercial areas we were debating on whether or not the the tire shop parking would need to come in through that existing commercial entrance. That's why we abandoned the office that was over by the fuel stop. And basically, it's a flat area. We were just trying to maximize all of the potential parking. I mean, trust me, if we don't need to install that parking in order to satisfy a sub shop, and the tire shop could get their parking in there without any expansion. We're not in love with doing any infrastructure development, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
And with regards to, my understanding is that any change in use has to be approved by the planning commission. So even though we already have a facility that does, the storage and distribution, tires kind of thing, and we've already said this is the fuel stop is a secondary. In order to get if you guys classify this as a restaurant instead of falling within the purview of the processing and packaging of foods and food products, then we would need to get a special exception, but we would like to get your recommendation that a special exception would be in the same general character. And it says the same general character as the above permitted uses and special exception uses. So I guess if we can't basically get a change of use to include a carryout restaurant and a fuel stop, then we're going to need to get a special exception for whichever of those you guys don't feel comfortable permitting within the change of use.
I'm looking at our table in the zoning ordinance right now under zoning districts, and the T and the LE restaurants, no restaurants are either permitted or under special exception. And we do define 3 types of restaurants: a standard, which is the sit down type restaurant, a fast food, and drive-in or drive-through restaurant. And I believe what you described is a fast food restaurant. So fast food can either have a sit down or a takeout component. And neither of those are permitted by special exception or through permitted use in the TLNI. And I think that's by design. Whenever we were looking at the TLNI, when we brought the TLNI in, this is years ago, the idea was we had lots of C2 and other type commercial areas immediately adjacent to this area that was more suited towards the type of traffic that we would see.
But if the purpose of light industrial is to provide commercial uses that are compatible with commercial uses in adjacent areas of the city, I don't understand why light industrial would exclude what's immediately adjacent when that conflicts with what the purpose is given in the zoning ordinance. If the zoning ordinance expressly states that its purpose is to allow for commercial uses that are, how does it say it? Compatible with commercial uses in adjacent areas of the city. And if a special exception, like of the special exceptions, so you could have an adult use at this facility, and that is going to be more in line with the adjacent uses than a sub shop. I mean, I don't want to make light of the situation, but you could have a topless sub shop and it would qualify as an adult use. Or you could even have an exotic dancing club that serves food, but you can't have, but Right.
So, I understand your argument, but you would still have to get a special exception to do that. And that would have to require the approval of the recommendation by this board and then the hearing at the Board of Zoning Appeals to do that. And again, where this is situated, I would think you'd have an uphill battle to get one of those types of adult uses and serving subs.
Oh, yeah.
Approved.
I agree.
Yeah.
Trust me, that's not the intention.
The Board of Zoning Appeals does have the authority to grant your exception if you can prove to their satisfaction Let me get, how's this? That what you want is of the same general nature, general character. But it does not require us to give you a recommendation that we go along with your special exception.
Okay, so let me ask this question then. If the big question that we're talking about is whether or not a restaurant complies with one of the principal uses or is in this similar character as the special exceptions, that is what you guys need to be comfortable with before you would issue a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals that you're in agreement with it. And I believe Commissioner raised the point of in the zoning map, and what is it you said, the use table?
Yes.
Yeah, the use table says restaurants are not compatible in light industrial, even though the purpose of light industrial says commercial uses that are, how do they say it? Compatible with commercial uses in adjacent areas of the city. So they almost have a little bit of a conflict within the regulations, which I'm sure you guys have run into before.
I think we're back to the same position we were in November.
Well,
I don't perceive that we have any problem with your proposal to do a fuel stop for trucks. But we find the restaurant to
okay, so basically the classification of that as a restaurant is inflexible. And whenever you basically refer to the use table earlier, that's a not allowed use. So you guys are basically saying there's not an opportunity for a restaurant of any form, or even if it's just a carry out in this zoning district.
that decision rests with the Board of Zoning Appeals, not with the Planning Commission.
I'm talking in regards to a recommendation from the Planning Commission. That's not going to happen as long as there's a restaurant and it conflicts with the use table.
I haven't heard of a motion as yet, so I can't say that.
Well, I'm just based upon the discussion and the way the discussion has gone, I would almost ask Mr. Smith whether he wants to almost separate these two uses and say we want to proceed with the sketch plan approval with the fuel stop and say that the commercial area 2s within the building are basically going to be put on hold and until we determine if there's another use that we could use for it, or we go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to try and get a restaurant sub shop in there. I mean, there's some other options that we could look at for those commercial area uses.
Or Aaron, the other suggestion I would make is that it needs to be an accessory use to the principal permitted use, which is the tire shop. If it was an accessory use, and I think that's part of where we're saying that the fuel piece of that kind of makes sense and it fits, but
the restaurant
to blanket statement that it's restaurant, and I guess just so Smitty, you're clear on this, it's not so much that it's a small little sub shop, is that if we say it's okay to put a restaurant in, essentially we're telling the Board of Zoning Appeals this whole parcel can essentially be rezoned, and you could put you could put a sit down restaurant in, or you could try to put some other kind of development in there that goes beyond a little carry out sub shop. That's really my concern, that this board or this commission doesn't have the ability to do that under the current zoning.
I totally understand what you're saying. Aaron, let's just let it go for now with the restaurants and just go with the fuel stop.
Okay. So how do we best separate the fuel stop out and say that the sketch plan, so basically commercial area 1 and commercial area 2 are future use. Once we find something that complies with the zoning restrictions, and just proceed with the fuel stop.
That sounds appropriate from my end, but
Okay.
I think that's a better answer to Laura. Question to you.
Sure.
That's how you would view this, right? I mean, we do projects like this all the time where it's future use or use done to be decided. The intent is anything undefined would go in front of you and you would make the decision afterwards, whether it's compliant or not, or whether it would have to go in front of the board for a special exception. Is that correct?
Generally speaking, any change of use would have to come to you for a review and approval first. And then, you know, if it would be a special exception, we'd be looking for a recommendation to Board of Zoning Appeals. There's also the option of perhaps a text amendment that would be made by application to the mayor and council, who would then refer to you for your review and approval on that. There's a couple different options, but a future use that's not already principally permitted would always come back for review and approval, whether it's primarily, first of all, through the Planning Commission, and then second of all, through the Board of Zoning Appeals.
The fueling station portion of it doesn't even require Board of Zoning Appeals approval, does it?
No, I think it still would as a special exception.
Why would it be a special exception if it's not an accessory use? I thought that was what we had agreed in the first meeting, that it was an accessory use for the principal use of the tire shop. I think that's actually in the minutes.
I'm just looking directly at the section 3.11, where it specifies the special exceptions, and under number 6 is a use or structure that the applicant proves to the satisfaction of the Board of Zoning Appeals to be the same general character as the above permitted uses and special exception uses in accordance. Okay, but that's probably referring, I see what you're saying. That's probably referring more to the other 5.
Yeah, I thought that in the minutes, the minutes state, after additional discussion, the commissioners concluded that a fueling station would be a secondary use to the existing primary business. So that's what I thought it fell under section D, accessory uses and structures that are permitted in the TLI district.
That's what we had discussed before. Is with
Okay, that's why I was
a-
thinking we shouldn't need to get a special exception for the fuel stop. I thought that would have been.
Yes, that's correct. I apologize. I was kind of confusing that section 6.
Gotcha.
No,
Trustee
Jason
Dick-
and everyone. Hey, I sort of agree with the same. I don't think it's a requirement, and it's just mine looking at this. I don't think it's a requirement for the special exception. I think that it does meet that definition that it's approved under 311B. So, I mean, from that side of, as long as it's the food that's causing the heartburn. I guess I want to ask a question for that. And some of it's for the discussion. Obviously, if it's a restaurant making food or fast food or something, could they sell more like convenience items? And I'm just asking that for everyone. So if that comes up, I mean, if you're a fuel stop, you are selling oil, antifreeze, everything else, but could you sell, I don't know, ho-hos?
Well, I actually was thinking about that when I was debating on, how to proceed with this. So they could manufacture prepackaged subs there and take it down to Subway and sell it. They just can't sell it on the premises.
That's true, but I'm just talking about like,
Right, so what can they sell?
Or something from like a convenience side.
Right.
And there's really no definition in here as to how we're going to do if it was more like a convenience sale instead of a restaurant sale. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
But to ask us a kind of a similar question that piggybacks on there, would Sheetz be considered a restaurant or a convenience store or a service station, given the gamut of services that they provide? I mean, they're in C2, so it doesn't matter. I'm just kind of asking.
Hey, Aaron, I'll take a stab. It's a gas station, but it's a fuel station, but it's also, that would meet the definition of a restaurant, either sit in or carry out, because they manufacture food. And they do have outside sitting areas generally, and I would think that would meet the requirement. Yeah.
Okay.
Ray, anybody else? Conrad?
Yeah, they were fast food, and under C2, they're principally permitted as fast food. And that goes back to what I originally said. The intent for the TLI district was not to take away such kind of establishments from the C1 and C2s. Areas that we've already developed that have areas that we have foot traffic in, as well as vehicular traffic.
And I mean, to answer your question, Jeff, I mean, again, I think that would be almost going more towards a retail type of establishment. And that I don't think is necessarily incidental to the current use. I mean, as far as selling prepackaged food.
Well, I don't think we're trying to go that direction anyway. So, I mean, we'll find other uses to apply to those commercial areas 1 and 2. And we may even just keep commercial area 2. That's the current office for Smitty's Tire. We're just trying to find something to do with commercial area 1. We'll find a use that is basically fits within one of the principal permitted uses or an accessory use, and come back basically in the future with that as a change of use for a zoning permit. We just want to stick with what we have now as a sketch plan. If we can get sketch plan approval on this and just call commercial area 1 undetermined future development, we should be able to, I think, still move forward with this plan.
Okay. Hey, Aaron, I just had one question for you on the site design. I know your primary design, and I'm looking at it, and I think everything is equal on both entrances. I was just thinking a thought of, obviously it is an industrial park yet, and most of the traffic is going to be coming into your site, obviously off of 36 and down Village Parkway. It looks like that radius is enough if there were trucks coming to the west up Village Parkway that they could enter. There was
yeah, if they were coming from, our thought was any trucks that are going to be coming from the east on Village Parkway, like the trucking terminal, theoretically,
right,
if they planned accordingly, they would basically pull in, fuel up, exit out, and continue down Village Parkway to the east to the facility, and then they're just going to come up and out.
I guess my only thought is if they do, just do something that there's good signage that all traffic is coming in from the western entrance and exiting.
Yeah, we could basically put a do not enter sign up that says, do not enter that eastern entrance. I mean, the eastern exit. It's an exit only, sorry.
I think that'd be a good idea.
That's fine.
Director Bennett, I got a question on procedures here.
Yes, sir.
This is a sketch plan that we have here for review. For him to continue on with his project as he's now thinking about, we need a preliminary or a final that we can approve the use of the fuel stop.
Since, and correct me if I'm wrong, since we've dropped the restaurant use application at this time, and we've determined that a fuel stop is an accessory use principally permitted, there's no reason to move forward with a request for a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So at this point, you could grant approval to your sketch plan review and request that Mr. Smith and Mr. Teets bring a preliminary site plan back for your review and approval.
Thank you.
And that site plan would deal with runoff like runoff collection?
It would
Storm drain.
absolutely, yes, it would be an engineered plan that would absolutely have to meet all provisions of the zoning ordinance and the subdivision and land development regulations. Yes.
My concern is that they plan for potential overflow and fuel accident or something like that.
Yeah, this is considered a hot spot. So the state of Maryland has specific design criteria that'll need to be followed
Mhm.
whenever the stormwater is designed.
Yes, and
So-
Allegheny Soil Conservation District would also have to be consulted.
I would think so, yeah.
At this time, the chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the addition of 4 fueling lanes as an accessory use on this site.
I'll make that motion.
I'll go ahead and second it.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the addition of 4 fueling lanes on this site. Director Bennett, would you call the roll?
I'd be happy to, Chair. Thank you. Commissioner Race,
Aye.
Commissioner Carter,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritchie,
Aye.
Commissioner Snyder,
Aye.
Commissioner Krogh,
Aye.
Chair Best.
Conrad's got his mic off.
Aye. So
Thank you. And Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Let the record reflect that a unanimous vote in favor has been recorded. Thank you, Mr. Smith and Mr. Teets, for your presentation this evening.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
everything.
Have a great evening, gentlemen. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Or if you would like to move on with the rest of your evening, you're free to do that as well. I appreciate
Thanks
your
for every-
time this evening.
Thank you for everything.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
next item is discussion items by the chair or member of the commission. Director Bennett, do you have any discussion items?
No, thank you, Chair. I do not.
Moving on to administrative business and communications. I see we have a lot split here. Director Bennett, if you present that, please.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. Okay, here's the lot split on your screen. And here is Bealls Lane, West Main Street. This portion right here, I'm sorry, that yellow block keeps coming up, is 11 Bealls Lane. And then this is, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the address on here, a West Main Street location. So this is technically a lot line adjustment, not necessarily a lot
61 or
split.
63.
Yes. So the original lot line, this was 11 Bealls Lane was almost like a postage stamp parcel where the structure took up almost the entire parcel. And that lot line has been adjusted from here over to here, providing a small area that increases the parcel for 11 Bealls Lane and decreases this West Main Street parcel. The intention is for no structure to be added there. This was brought to my attention by Mr. Brewer of Bennett and Brewer and Associates, and he was retained to create this lot line adjustment, and he submitted it to me to bring to your attention because it is his habit whenever this happens within Allegheny County that he follows that procedure. Allegheny County has codified the procedure for lot splits or lot line adjustments. And basically what county code says is when an existing lot, regardless of its size, is to be split into two adjacent lots and ownership is to be transferred to adjacent lot owners, or when part of an existing lot is transferred to an adjacent lot owner. No subdivision plat will be required unless a dwelling unit is to be placed on one of the parcels being transferred. That is not the case here because, you know, the creation of this lot line adjustment does not create a buildable lot. And so in any case, a copy of the deed or survey of the lot involved shall be submitted to the Planning Commission for its files. And that's what's stated in Allegheny County Code. That is something that we do not have in our subdivision and land development regulations. And since Mr. Brewer brought this to my attention, I wanted to bring it, of course, to your attention. And then ask for your recommendation if this is something you would like to have added to the subdivision and land development regulations.
Correct me if I'm wrong, LJ, but I'm pretty sure this follows state law. So it's a moot issue. It's nice to have in the subdivision regulations, but it's not required because by under definition, this is not a subdivision. You're not creating a new lot of record.
Exactly.
So
in my opinion, I think consistency is important.
I would add it, just, you know, but I don't think you need to do it now. So whenever we're ready to do the subdivision review, you know how you got your big list of things you want to
I
change?
have my list. Yes, sir.
Add this to the list.
Duly noted. Thank you very much.
Hey, Ray, just for conversation. You thinking it's, I don't think it's something we'd have to necessarily approve unless it would meet that requirement for a new structure. So is it more or less just for our review and noting, or, I mean, because
we don't even need this can be done even without any city involvement. I can do a lot line adjustment in the state of Maryland without going through the subdivision process. And right now, the municipalities only have the authority under law to judge the subdivision process. So I can move my lot line. I can sell property any way I want. Where the ability for the municipality comes in is whenever they want to issue a building permit. So in the event of this one, say on the back of the 11,
Right.
if they wanted to add an addition to this, then LJ can come back and say, hey, we didn't do a formal subdivision. You need now to do a subdivision thing. Or she can accept the lot line adjustment because the lot line adjustment did not create any issues with setbacks, so forth.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. And I personally, when I do lot line adjustments, I run them through people like LJ just to say, hey, I want your confirmation that this adjustment does not create an issue on the adjoining property or property here. Because the last thing I want to do is for my client is to deed a piece away, then make their piece non-compliant.
Exactly. And then it's my opinion that it's right and appropriate to keep this on file.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it wasn't so much we approve it or whatever. It's more of because the law requires, or the regulation requires, that it be sent to the planning commissions. So I guess my thought is that we just have them presented to us just so we can look at for whatever reason. But it sounds like we should at least, because they are being directed towards us. Thoughts,
I agree.
anyone?
I'm not entirely sure the law says you have to do that in front of the planning commission.
Okay, I just heard somebody say that. That's why I was saying that. I wasn't sure of that.
I'm looking over to JC right now, yeah, our lawyer in residence, but my interpretation on the subdivision law is as long as we're not creating a new lot of record, then it's not a subdivision by definition.
Right.
Hey, you know, I rely on you for lot splits and
Yes.
subdivisions.
And I'd just like to, you know,
And honestly, I mean, I actually did the closing when Mr. Yeager brought this property, and I don't think anybody even realized that he didn't own that little piece. or wasn't going to, that didn't go with the 11 Bealls Lane. I think it had always been used as part of 11 Bealls Lane.
There's a little bit of history to this that I know of. The former owner of 11 Bealls Lane paid money to the former owner of, I think it's 63 West Main Street for that portion of money. And when they went to the state offices to record it in the deed, the owner of 63 West Main had not paid his taxes. Therefore, the tax commission would not change the records. And the former owner did not get his money back.
And
That'd be an
then,
interesting lawsuit, wouldn't it, JC?
and then people died, and then people went into nursing homes, and this was a huge, huge mess.
And I had a ringside seat.
So perhaps all the better that we have this final resolution on file. Just in case there would ever be any question, then it's on file in our offices and easily brought forward to discuss.
Do both parties then have to sign off on this?
Yes,
Yes, there's a
I mean,
transaction
essentially,
element to this.
yeah, I mean, the owner of the West Main Street property would have to be agreeing to this, yes.
Well, we've been notified. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Director Bennett, do you have any staff reports?
No, sir, I don't have any staff reports for you this evening.
Great. Do we have a motion for adjournment? Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. We adjourn, and I'll take it upon myself as the chair to adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, LJ and Bethany.
Thank you. Good night,
Thank you very-
everybody.
Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you so much
Night.
for your thoughtful deliberation. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Bethany, do you want to stay on for just a moment after I end the live stream and we'll just wrap up our administrative duties?